So you're thinking of buying a home here in Columbia, South Carolina. Let me save you some serious money and actually some headaches all at the same time. Because there are certain types of homes that you just don't want to buy no matter how good the price looks. You hear me say all the time that people move here to Columbia for the cost of living, but they actually stay for the lifestyle. Well, you don't want to move here for that cost of living if some of these things are in it. Now, these can range anywhere from houses in flood zones to bad flips, to older homes with some major issues. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through the biggest traps I see people fall into. And trust me, some of these can actually cost you tens of thousands if you're not careful. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Chad Dorman, your go-to realtor here in Columbia, South Carolina. I help families buy, sell, and relocate here to the Midlands all the time. And I give you the honest truth about what it's like to live and buy here. So make sure and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my weekly videos. And if you're serious about moving here, schedule a Zoom call with me. These are the highlight of my day. I get to meet people and actually develop more of a customized plan and see where you want to move here, what does best for you, how we can help you even better. Now that Zoom link, it's down in the description below. You can always call or text me directly with your questions. I'm available all the time, and it is me who really answers. First on the list, what we're going to talk about is flooding and homes in flood zones, especially around, I've told you we've got 3 rivers here in Columbia that converge into one, 2 of them, the Broad and Saluda, which converge into the Congaree. And then you've also got Wateree River that goes into the Wateree Lake as well. So there's a lot of those areas that converge here in downtown, and even areas around Gills Creek, which Gills Creek runs all the way from areas in Fort Jackson all the way to the southeast of Columbia through Rosewood, through Forest Acres, through a lot of that area. Now, back in 2015, Columbia saw one of the most devastating floods around. And entire neighborhoods were in the water. Even today, there are areas where one big storm can mean water in your yard, or worse, water in your living room. If you buy a home in one of these zones, you're not just risking flooding, you're also paying for expensive flood insurance. And let me tell you, that's a whole nother thing about flood insurance. It will not cover your entire home, which I'll explain to you in a story I'm gonna share here in just a bit. And that flood insurance code can add hundreds to your monthly mortgage. Matter of fact, I even make people sign a flood disclosure when they go to buy homes with me. And that doesn't, all that flood disclosure is telling you is that it doesn't even have to be in a flood zone that a mortgage company might actually require you to have flood insurance on it. Not every home near water is a no-go, but you need to know exactly what zone it's in and what your insurance costs will be. This is one mistake that can turn your dream home into an absolute financial nightmare. Now, let me give you a quick example. I want to read you this story. Now, in that flood of 2015, we had a major flood that it affected just about all of South Carolina, but especially in the Columbia area, and even more so in the Charleston area. But I'm actually going to talk about the Columbia area because that's where I do my business and my real estate. When this flood happened, there was a 59-year-old lady. Her name was Carmen Bowie. And I want to just read you a little bit about her story. She was stranded in her home, and she lived a little bit in Forest Acres, which actually was not even considered that much of a flood zone. But the 2015 area hit areas that were not flood zones and that typically would not flood, but they did in this because of the way different dams broke. And I mean, there were like 45 different dams that broke. Bowie was stranded in her home for hours before neighbors could even get to her. She was 59 years old, and she said the water had backed up not only from the floods, but she had her sewage backing up as well. And it was a very expensive problem. She had flood insurance, but again, it wasn't enough to cover all of her expenses. If she wanted to stay, she would have to raise her home 6 feet, which she couldn't afford to do that. This was not the most expensive home in the world. Bowie's buyout was finally approved was in 2018. So she had to literally, now this is an extreme case, but she had to go rent a place to stay in, which she couldn't really afford too much. Then she also had to be paying her own mortgage until FEMA, with the government, with a number of other people filing applications for FEMA to pay this. She was even told when she went to rent, just do it month to month. She received $78,000, which was enough to pay off her mortgage, but it didn't leave her much to even go buy a new home. It was her entire family history. It was up 5-6 feet. Anything under 6 feet in her home was destroyed. She had nothing left. Now, what this did, the changes that it made in Columbia because of this flood, and it actually changed. So Nikki Haley, during that too, was our governor. She began to form the State Disaster Recovery Office. And this was people that could help during storms like this and do this. They even had set aside with this office when they did it, $42 million, but it only goes so far. Since then, it was actually Governor Henry McMaster, who is our governor now, made the Office of Resilience a separate agency so that they can deal with people when they do it. When these things come up, they can actually be assigned to a person that keeps checking in with them. So since 2020, there are federal funds that would help with this and FEMA funds, but the state has also set aside nearly $300 million. The state has nearly set aside with this separate agency $300 million to help cover more immediate aid needs and cleanup costs from natural disasters, and to pay for projects to prevent future flooding. Now, when they paid her off at that $78,000, that area pretty much, the Columbia bought it out and nobody can build there anymore because of how bad that area flooded. Every buyer that comes to me, one, we're going to look at the flood zone. We're going to go straight into the tax documents and make sure it's not in the flood zone. Your mortgage is a company, and they're going to look at any creeks, any rivers, whatever's nearby, and they're going to look into flood insurance as all. Now, I have been in real estate for 7 years, and I've sold a couple hundred houses. Easy. I have dealt with 2 that have been in the flood zone, and one of them was downtown off Trenholm Street, and it flooded heavy during the 2015, and that was an investor that came in and did that. And when he resold it, he had to actually cough up a good bit. It's not as much a problem as you think. And I have done many houses in the Rosewood, Shandon area. I have done one, only one, in the Forest Acre area of all things, but I've done many in those top suburbs of Chapin, Irmo, Lexington, and Blythewood, and the Northeast also. So I've done many in your top areas out here, and I hardly ever have a problem with flood zone. I will go check out the flood zones first, and if it's in a flood zone at all, my buyer just does not want it. But I know a lot of the areas where a lot of those flood zones are. Now, that is the one I'm going to take the most time on because it's the one I get the most questions of all the time. Now, let's go to number 2 reason. You have older homes in downtown Columbia. I told you I've done a lot of those older homes, and there are some beautiful homes. The Shandon area and the Rosewood area and the Forest Acres area. Downtown Columbia has some gorgeous historic homes, and they have a lot of charm, character, walkability. But here's the problem. What's happening is these investors are coming in, and especially these homes downtown, they were built in the 60s, 70s. Some of them were even 100 years old. I just saw one posted on the market. It is a beautiful home, and it's around $700,000. It has been redone to perfection, and it is gorgeous. When you're talking about a lot of these old homes, you're talking about older plumbing, you're talking about older wiring, foundation cracks, possibly. Most of these have crawl spaces that are very, very small. Matter of fact, I have to tell my CL 100 people when they're coming to check them out to send their skinny guy if he's coming to get under the house to look into it because it's so small back when they built homes like these. Anything that's got foundation cracks, roofs need replacements, and many of them, they have, because of those small crawl spaces, they used to have furnaces and stuff, but they were not geared for AC, not central units. So they've put ductwork up under there and stuff. As a matter of fact, many of these people, you can't access certain parts of the home underneath because you can't get around the ductwork and stuff because these homes were not designed with ductwork because they were that old. If you're not prepared for major upkeep, these homes can drain your budget really, really fast. Inspections on these type properties almost always reveal some costly repairs unless an investor's done it right. For the right buyer, they can be amazing investments. And stuff in the Shandon area especially trades quicker than just about anything here in the Midlands. But for someone looking for move-in ready, a lot of these homes are not that way, and they can quickly become money pits, because you also want to check utility bills. In these hot summers that we have, your AC could be running the entire time. With a lot of that, it comes these older homes, wood windows, single pane windows. They don't hold the air in. Your utility bill in the summer might not be but between 100, 150 bucks. But a house like that that was built 50, 60, 70 years ago may run you as much as 300 or 400 in these hot months like that. So you've got to be prepared for that. Now, number 3, let's talk about bad flips with cheap renovations. Because again, you have investors coming here all the time. They may come in, do some cosmetic stuff, slap a coat of gray paint, throw in some cheap cabinets, call it a renovation. Do some cheap flooring. Most of the time they're going to put carpet down if they're not doing it right. And when they do LVP, they don't even know how to lay it, and it's buckling up a lot of times. When you're doing stuff like that, on the surface, these houses may look shiny and new, but dig deeper. You'll find corners cut everywhere. It could be poor craftsmanship, it could be mismatched plumbing, it could be HVAC systems that weren't even replaced, roofs at the end of their life. These homes might pass at a quick glance, but after living in them for a few months, you'll start seeing the problems, and you will pay for them. The key here is not falling for cosmetic upgrades. Always bring in a good inspector, and don't get blindsided by some fresh smelling paint and fresh carpet. I've done some homes that are by these national buyers that come in and do it. And a lot of times that's what they do. They'll buy these homes, they'll put paint on them, carpet, make it all look good. But what can help with that? I keep a list of inspectors with me. The 3 main inspections you want to have on almost every house, especially an investor house and especially a flip house. I have looked at a bunch of them, these investors that have flipped them cheap. I've looked at a bunch of them lately, and we've walked right back out the door. But it's worth doing a home inspection. We're in the South, CL 100, so you've got to do a termite letter. And then again, we're in the South. You live and breathe by your HVAC system. So your HVAC or your air condition, you want to make sure it's running properly. If you have those 3 home inspections, you might spend as much as $600, $700, $800, $900, depending on the size of the home. But if you do that, you will not regret it. Number 4, homes without proper insulation or energy efficiency. Now this I'll talk about real quick because I just touched on this a minute ago with old single pane windows, old with insulation that they're not properly insulated. Columbia gets hot. Again, it can be painfully hot sometimes in those summers. I don't think it's as long as what people think all the time, but I mean, it's September, and where people would tell you it's burning hot here, it's cool. I am in my backyard. But if your home is not properly insulated, your power bills can skyrocket. Some of these older homes, and even some newer builds, if they're not done right, just don't have the insulation you need to keep cool. That means your AC will run consistently. Your electric bill will make you sweat even more than you were physically sweating because of the prices. Again, like I said, it can be anywhere from $200 to $400, possibly even higher if you've got a bigger, older home. So before you buy, check the attic, check the windows, check the HVAC system. Comfort and energy costs matter more than people realize when you're living throughout a Columbia summer. And so you definitely, again, go right back. Number 5, the big picture, protecting your investment. So here's the big picture. Not every home's a good buy. Even in a growing market like Columbia is, flood zones, old downtown money pits, cheap flips, and homes without proper insulation. These are the traps that I help my clients avoid. My clients trust me explicitly. They go with a lot of, majority of the time, unless they have somebody they use, they go with the inspectors that I trust. They go with the lenders that I trust. All these things that, because I've been in the business 7 years, I have qualified people. And the one thing you can count on with me too is communication between everybody. There's so many different moving parts in a home. But the good news is there are plenty of great homes out there. A lot of them are out here because so many more people are moving to Columbia. You just got to know where to look. And that's where having a local realtor like me who actually cares about what your investment makes all the difference. Cares about what you care about in your investment. In conclusion, if you're planning on a move to Columbia, don't do it alone. My job is to make sure you don't fall into these traps and that you find a home that's not just beautiful, but also smart financially. Text me anytime. I'll answer your questions directly. Schedule a Zoom call with me. I love to look at you in the face, just like I'm doing right now into the camera, and talk to you, especially if you're out of state. I can't visualize you on the phone, and you can't visualize me. And make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next video about life and real estate here in Columbia. Now, again, my name's Chad Dorman, your local realtor. I'm always available, I'm always honest, and I'm always here to help. See you in the next video.